Okay, welcome to the second 2022 NHL Draft recap here at Scouching. We're going to look at the Toronto Maple Leafs today. Now, the Toronto Maple Leafs were interesting. They were a lot more busy than I foolishly thought they would because, it's Kyle Dubas. This is how he does his business. The first thing worth bringing up is trading Peter Mrazek and trading down in the draft from 25. Look, if they thought Fraser Minton was their guy, then yeah, you take that opportunity to dump Peter Mrazek. They got to make that cap space to sign Calle Yarncroke. They got to have it. I kid, but Fraser Minton at 38 shocked me personally. I'll defer to Kyle Dubas on drafting because they have resources and finances and people power that I just do not have. I know for a fact that Fraser Minton was one of the best interviews they had. Really, really smart. Really knows what's going on in a hockey game and really understands things really, really well. He's a relatively big guy. I know everybody's projecting him as more of a bottom six guy. That's fine. I really look at the Toronto Maple Leafs and go, man, that 25th overall pick or even the 38th overall pick, they could have swung on some scoring depth that I think they desperately need. You don't draft on need, but when I look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm going, they need guys to come in on entry-level deals that can score and be some of the more valuable per dollar contracts in the league. I don't think Fraser Minton is that. And judging by how their offseason has gone, I think there's a bit of an organizational shift in philosophy going on here based on who they've brought in on deals and how they drafted, to be perfectly honest, where they're really, I think, putting a lot of effort and faith in their development system. I don't know. Is Fraser Minton going to be a bottom six guy in the NHL? I can't see why not. I think he could have aimed a lot higher, personally, at 38. But it's not the end of the world. He's a smart player, pretty well-rounded. Nothing really stood out in the viewings I did of him. I don't have any track data on him because whenever I watched him, I'm kind of going, I don't know. Would I draft him top 50? No. But, look, Toronto has resources that we don't, or at least that I don't. Maybe there's something there, but I don't know. I've watched a lot of hockey this year, and there were... my pick at 38 for Team Scouching was Lane Hutson here, and I've seen a lot of Lane Hutson this year, and Fraser Minton can be the smartest, most nice and wonderful kid off ice who can read a game on tape really, really well. I still feel like guys like Lane Hutson or Gleb Trikozov or whatever still carry a bit more value, but nonetheless, I'll put faith in the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Leafs fans probably should too, as long as it's in the regular season or with their young players. Nicholas Moldenhauer at 95. I also thought that was a really good pickup there. I thought that Moldenhauer fell a little bit in the draft relative to where I thought he might go. But he is an unrefined player. He's really smart. Had a terrible start to the season with a terrible injury, a cut to the head and neck area that could have been extremely, extremely worse. And it kind of did look like he was a player that did miss some pivotal time to sort of get up to speed, and he still had a pretty good year in the USHL. I like Moldenhauer. He's smart. Again, this is one of those guys where the on-ice apparent talent isn't overwhelming, but the smarts are there. The ability to see the ice is there and read play. And I guess their development staff thinks that they can get something out of him over time, sending him to college, blah, 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 which, sure, you know what? If that's the case, then I'd believe it. I don't have a ton of problems with Moldenhauer at 95. Again, like in Dallas with Fagaris, at this point in the draft, there are guys that I would push for, but there's lots of other guys I could see a team wanting just the same as I would for other reasons. At 122, Dennis Hildeby. I honestly totally forgot about this guy. I had been told about him by Mikhail Holm during the season and watched a bit of him. Now, his stats in the SHL are a little bit misleading. In those games, he had a really light workload relative to other goaltenders and such, but he still stopped a lot of pucks. He's big. I at 122, based on what I saw of him, though, I could easily be swayed to pick him up in that range. I didn't take him at 122. I believe mine was Tyler Duke, who Toronto brought to their development camp anyway. But Hildeby, look, he's further along in his development, and if you get an NHL goaltender let's say he's in the NHL in 2 years, they've already got him on an entry-level deal. He's already past 20, or he will be, I should say. He's a D+3. If he comes to Toronto and plays games, then that's a great pick at 122. you've won. And I think that's a possibility based on how much his career has sort of improved over the last 24 months. Nikita Gribiankan at 135. I actually was really pleasantly surprised to see him get drafted. I didn't care who drafted him, but I remember a little while ago I went through a bunch of re-entry MHL players, and Gribiankan, I think, was the only one that really stuck out to me where I'm going, okay, this might be a thing. He's got some length. He's tall, skilled. He's an MHL player that doesn't really play like an MHL player. He attacks the middle of the ice a lot with power and dropping a shoulder and getting below the goal line and really sort of grinding it out around that area. I like Nikita Gribiankan. I don't have huge expectations, and I don't even know if and when he'll come over. I mean, his MHL team is very, very good. The KHL team is very, very good. The KHL team's probably not going anywhere. I mean, famous last words in this economy, but you never know. But I like Nikita Gribiankan. I think that at 135, there's other guys I might have pushed for, especially maybe re-entry guys I would have liked. But I think Gribiankan is a really interesting pickup. And of all the MHL re-entry guys that I watched, he was the one that stuck out the most for me for that sort of skill and middle-driven game that he kind of brought. And at 218, they took Brandon Lazowski, who I took Alexis Gendron at 218 on my team scouting list, but Gendron was Lazowski was the alternate, I should say. I really like Lazowski. He's agile and can really shoot the puck, but everything else is a bit of a work in progress with Lazowski. I thought he would be drafted well before this, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of a guy like Ty Ronning in that kind of area where he's a really good goal scorer and scored a ton of goals in the WHL and probably will continue to do so just based on his shot quality, but will need some time and patience to really sort of get to NHL pace and puck control levels that you need and being able to make pre-scan the ice and make plays. Lazowski just kind of doesn't really bring that, but as a pure finisher, there's a lot to like in value here. Like, I honestly, a lot of worse players went off the board between 135 and 218 in my view. And I think Lazowski is one of these guys where there are certain things that he does that are very, 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 very high end, and just needs to sort of build out the rest of the picture. It'll take time if it ever happens, but he's an interesting pickup. So for Toronto, I mean, look, I think I like their draft a little bit more than Dallas, even if their first pick was a bit of a punt in my view. Like Fraser Minton, if he hits his ceiling, everybody seems to say, even the NHL scouts I've spoken to that I would agree with, they're saying like third line guy, which is fine. And some of the guys that I would have pushed for, they'll either work or they won't. That's a fact. And maybe that's not what Toronto's interested in. Maybe they just want a guy at 38 that they really, really like, that they know they can depend on, who, whatever. And a 2B seems reasonable because I do like the depth of their picks. Moldenhauer and Hildeby, I think, could be things. I like Gribiankan from what I've seen, and Lazowski's just a nice high upside swing for that goal scoring ability. In the 7th round, right? Like if you can get a draft first time eligible who scored 30 goals in the last round of the draft, then you're golden. Or not golden, but that's a pretty decent bet to make relative to most other 7th round picks. So that's going to be it for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They get the 2B at the end of the video here. The next team we're going to be looking at is their divisional rival, the Buffalo Sabres. So stay tuned for that one, and we'll see you tomorrow.